All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening here on the West Coast. Again, this is your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movies and Shakers Unlimited. And as you will know, we do have a special episode with a special guest. So give me one moment. I'm super excited to have them on. Just stand by. So I want to introduce Robert McLachlan. What's going on, sir? How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, as I said, guys, for those of you who have been looking at any of the promos that we have for this episode, Robert here, he is the cinematographer of the highly anticipated uh, Lovecraft Country, which I had a chance to check out in its premiere last week. Sir, thank you so much for coming on and talking about the show. I'm excited to dive in.
My
Um,
pleasure.
yeah, absolutely. So, just to hit the ground running, can you talk a bit about how your involvement with Lovecraft Country started?
Yeah, well, just before I say anything, I should point out that I'm one of two cinematographers on the show.
Yes, and we
I,
will
I
get to that as well.
I
Yes.
shared that with Michael Watson, a wonderful Atlanta-based DP. Um, yeah, I thought I was going to go back. I'd been working on this series called Ray Donovan in New York and
Love
LA
that show
before
as well.
that.
Yep.
And I thought I was. It was kind of looking like I was going to go back and do season 7 with them, and then I got sent this script by Bill Carrero, the producer on Lovecraft Country, who I'd worked with previously on a couple of movies, and he only does the first class stuff, and I just never. I'd never read anything like this before, and they sent me a link to watch, the rough cut of the pilot that they had shot almost 2 years prior to that. The gestation period between the pilot and coming to getting to shoot was very long. Um, but what blew me away was I mean I just like if you watch the first episode the other night, you know that there's nothing quite like this. It's I was people asked me to encapsulate. I was saying, well, um, if you took the Green Book, the movie The Green Book, and mixed it up with The Twilight Zone, you'd be somewhere in the ballpark. But it's very hard to categorize this show.
Sure.
But what I really loved about it was it's bringing up the issues of racism and but wrapped up in an incredibly different and amazing package. And I mean, it's a subject that um, always affected me, viscerally. I mean, I grew up as a little kid watching, that stuff that the show tackles in Canada. Um, and the attitudes there are, generally quite different than they are, as I've discovered since I've lived in the U.S. And I just really liked where its heart was, and I love the horror aspect too. And they had brought on a wonderful production designer who I'd worked with on a movie before. Really, it was just like I had to do this. So I had a Skype interview with Misha Green, our wonderful showrunner, and and she decided to bring me on board. And so I flew down to, I withdrew from Ray Donovan. I flew down to Atlanta. I guess it would have been early April 2019. I was there right till December, going flat out on this very, very big, ambitious show. It's one of my favorite things I've done.
Outstanding. And it's funny, you were, name dropping Ray Donovan. I love that show as well. So I guess the next question is hopping into that idea of whether you're, in front of the camera, whether you're behind the camera, there is an approach as an artist that you have and that you take when you're tackling any given project. So with that being said, because as you said, you name drop Ray Donovan. We haven't even touched on all the other things, projects that you have worked on, whether it's Final Destination. I love those films as well. Whether it's Westworld or even Game of Thrones. But in talking about that, can you talk about the approach that you used with this project, especially with the idea of it being an adaptation of something that's already been that has been done in a different medium, in approaching that?
Yeah, I mean, the book, I read the book to get my head into it, but of course the show ultimately is going to diverge quite a bit from it, as
Sure.
TV shows often have to, for simplicity and narrative drive and what have you. But really, I don't, at this point in my career, I don't sort of go into a project with a specific point, a preconceived notion of what it's going to look like, or what the look is going to be, or what the style is going to be. I find that usually ends up working against you, because you don't know what all the other people, all the other talents are going to bring to the table, including a great production designer and amazing sets, and the costumes and the wardrobe on the show were absolutely first rate, and they really complemented the actors really well. And you get there, and as a cinematographer, and if the location has been well chosen and it's appropriate to the script, and if the set has been thoughtfully designed, and usually the cameraman will have something to say about it, I respond to that more than anything. I don't sort of think, oh, this show is going to look like, I know I can make this look like such and such. I just don't, I can't. I think you're doing a disservice to a project if you go in with a lot of preconceived notion. Not to say that you don't have a pretty good idea of what you want to feel from it, because that comes off the page of the script. And if you're reading that script, and as a cinematographer, you try and express that and find that in it. But in terms of going in with like, oh, I'm going to remake such and such, or I don't work that way.
Gotcha. And in that same regard, as you said, in talking about the various genres that that this series plays with, there would you say that even though you were discussing just now the being receptive into trying different things and capturing what you're trying to accomplish in a given scene, what would you say would be what would you say would be a language that you use with the camera when it comes to speaking, trying to provide the language with horror, or having that type of element
Right.
within a scene? The only reason why I ask that is right now what's immediately coming to mind, and I don't want to spoil it, but what happens in the second half of the first episode, and what that entails, and setting that tone.
Um, yeah, again, it really, you get there, you'll have a plan. We had the luxury of pre-lighting our sets, and like roughing all that stuff in, but you always want to leave room to improvise and improve on and respond to, for instance, what the actors do. And I mean, the cast on this show is like, from top to bottom, I mean, they are freaking awesome. And they'll bring something to it, and you'll a different feel, something you didn't think. And I've been doing this long enough that I kind of work more instinctively than intellectually, I would say. And I don't kind of think that stuff through so much. Although I do like working with, like when I've got, I encourage my crew to ask me questions, because it makes me think about, why are you doing that? And so, well, I hadn't really thought about it, but it just feels like it just feels like the right thing to do. And after I've shot a lot of stuff, and a lot of places, and over a long time, and you end up with a big bag of tricks in the back of your head that you can dig into and pull out when an opportunity presents itself, or when a problem arises too, because that's one of the things you just can't anticipate everything that's going to happen. The weather might throw a curveball at you or something like that, and you respond to it maybe the way you have in the past, or maybe you have to invent a new solution.
Gotcha. And
I
that's
don't know if that
actually,
answers your question, but that's my
no, it does. It does. I guess what you were saying actually provides a great segue to what I was going to ask next, which is you touched on it before, the idea of having the luxury of having another cinematographer work with you as well. Can you speak, to that, as well? Because, that's not always the case. Typically, is just,
yeah.
you're working yourself
Yeah,
versus
no, I mean
having.
we're each doing our own thing. What's happened in episodic is that as it's become much more ambitious. I mean, let's face it, TV, compared to 20 years ago, has come a long way. And so what they do is we'll each be involved, we'll each be in charge of our own episodes. But what happens is I'll be shooting one, and Michael, for instance, would be prepping with the other director, because that lets them get both their minds together, working on and finding locations and deciding, putting their plan of attack into place. So, and then normally you hopscotch. So, I prep one while he's shooting, and then I shoot while he's prepping, and that lets the camera director and assistant director teams, bond and get together. And in episodic television, the directors are always, every episode usually you'll get a different director. So
Right, right,
it's
right.
important to have that quality time ahead of time. So that worked really well on this show, and well, it works. I think most of the time it works really well. Although, having said that, I mean, I started out doing series where one DP shot every episode, and it's unbelievably hard. But I learned how to do it, and you get your shorthand, and hopefully you're being reunited with a director that you knew before, but you're not always. And but I think as the bar for television has reached, has just gone up and up and up and up and up. That having that time to prepare and really just focus on what you're going to be doing next week, as opposed to just trying to deal with today's problems on set, is really important. So, Michael, I shot all of episode 2, 3, 4, 8, and 10. Michael did the other ones, and then I also shot. They only got about, I don't know, maybe 65-70% of the pilot in the can originally, so we had to do a lot more shooting for that, including that. I mean, I think the most fun thing of the whole season for me to shoot, I think, was that opening sequence on the first episode, where he's looks, what the hell, where you are. This is the best.
Right.
This is the best series opening ever.
Right. Well, with that being said, too, would you say that, while it's, terrific to have, that luxury to kind of divvy up the workload of what a series entails, does it still also bring challenges in terms of aesthetic? Because, you still want to have your own voice as a cinematographer, yet you're still working within the confines of a series and an aesthetic that they're trying to capture.
Yeah, it's a part of me. Part of me kind of likes shooting every episode. I mean, I shot most episodes of Ray Donovan, um, and you have this sort of pride of ownership of the images and the visual language
Sure.
of the whole thing. But today's demands, you kind of got to let that go. And for instance, on Game of Thrones, in a typical season, they did 10 episodes, and they had 5 directors teamed with 5 DPs and 5 assistant directors. So you were only, you were all there at the same time, all working together, all cross pollinating and everything, but you're only doing 2 episodes, which is basically you were there to shoot a 2-hour movie, because you did a couple of episodes back to back. And so you got to sink your teeth into those, and that was plenty to chew on. Let me tell you, that show. But at the same time, the 5 DPs were all, we'd all initially be in the same room working, and we it's amazing how much everybody thinks the same way about the best. If I think if you're good and experienced cinematographer, almost all of us would approach a given set the exact same way. And that show tended to be very, source inspired, very naturalistic lighting, albeit very moody. And so you could do that. I think if somebody with a sharp eye watched the difference, watch Michael's episodes and my episodes on Lovecraft, they're going to see a little bit of a different tone and feel. But on the other hand, that show, as you'll see as the season goes on, it
weaves.
Well, there is a a theme that runs through the whole thing, and a storyline and an arc. But each one of them has a slightly different style. For instance, and feel, and they so that they could almost stand alone. So episode 2, we had in the back of our heads, okay, this is a little bit Eyes Wide Shut, and episode 3, The Shining, was in the back of our minds, as in terms of the sort of the, where the episode from the writing was tipping its hat.
Oh, yeah.
Episode 4 was Raiders of the Lost Ark, but with African Americans. So, which is kind of a first. I mean, it's a really fun episode. We did, and I think people are really going to like it. So that was sort of the thinking. So I think some of them are so out there. There's one of Michael's is going to be spectacular. I mean, it's got space and time travel. I shouldn't, not spoiler alert. At least I think it did. It's so any difference between his work and my work, I think is going to be swallowed up by the thematic and setting differences of the various episodes.
Gotcha. Well, as I said, I am super excited. I've seen the first episode. I'm super excited to see what's to come. But with that being said, too, thankfully, the show was already, as you were saying, in the can. So right now it's just in terms of having the show have its run. But in terms of upcoming projects with your slate, now that sets are slowly opening back up and getting slowly tiptoes back to a state of normalcy. Yeah, right. What are some other projects? I know you're still encompassed within this project, but what are some other ones that you are considering and that are still on tap?
Well, it's funny you mention it, because literally, nobody was seeing peep. I wasn't hearing a peep about anything. And then this week, the phone started to ring, because I think everybody's pretty much gearing up to try and get something going in the fall. The people that made Ray Donovan are doing a pilot for Showtime that I was excited at the prospect of. But literally just this morning, I got a call to do a really cool horror film, kind of aimed at kids, but something that everybody's going to like, for Netflix, that's going to shoot up in Toronto. So I was pulling my suitcases out when you dinged me to remind me that we were doing this thing. I was like, so I'm going to be up there for the rest of the year. And Canada's kind of got their act together a little better than the US in terms of containing COVID. So, the sets, there's a fair bit of production up there at this point. And then in the new year, there's a couple of options. I mean, I just hope that, I want to do another season of Lovecraft as soon as possible. But, to get the caliber of scripts that they have, and that's going to take a while.
Definitely. Well, Rob, thank you again so much for taking the time to come on Movies and Shakers Unlimited and talk Lovecraft Country. Before I let you go, can you tell folks where they can find you?
Find me?
Yeah.
The best place to find me is RBMASC on Instagram.
All right. And it's there, listed right there.
Lots of stuff there. Okay.
Awesome. So there you guys have it. Thank you guys so much for watching. As you know, I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movies and Shakers Unlimited. You're watching the show now on Facebook. However, you can also find us on Twitter at Move and Shake UNLTD. You can also find us on Instagram at Movers Shakers Unlimited. You can find me on Twitter at Brandon Troy ENT, and of course on Instagram at Brandon Troy _ENT. So with that being said, guys, thanks again so much for watching. Be safe out there, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.